37% of our business is digital, so we have revenues of $23 billion if you include associates, and there's $76 billion of billing. So if you take about 37% of that is in digital already. So we're well on the road. The target is for it to be about 40 to 45% of our business, so roughly half of our business. So no, this is just a small demonstration. I mean, you can go back on the content side to our first investment was in Harvey Weinstein's film fund. We then went into media rights capital, which did House of Cards and Borat and Bruno and Ted 2. Then we went to Full Screen with Peter Cherny's 100 YouTube channels, Vice.com with Shane Smith, and we own about 9.5% of Vice, and you have Fox in there, you have Disney in there, and you have the production deal with Time Warner. Then we have indigenous media with the Avnet Brothers, Refinery 29, Truffle Pig, Alex the Kid in music this week. So there are, and this spans a number of years. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's been there for a long time. One thing I would say is that we haven't moved fast enough. With the benefit of 2020 hindsight, I'd like to move even faster.
How important is Latin America for the group right now?
Latin America is about 10%, just under 10% of our revenues. It's very important. Brazil's the biggest market, bit challenged at the moment, but by general economic conditions. Second biggest market is Argentina, obviously also a bit challenged at the moment, but very important. Then Mexico. Also, under the new president there for the last couple of years, Mexico has been not growing as fast as we'd like, but we think there's massive potential. We're very bullish on Mexico, doing a lot of very important work there with major companies there. And then, of course, countries like Colombia and Peru, which have been very strong. The rise, the fall in the oil price, the rise in the oil price helped those economies. The fall did not help it. There are problem economies like Venezuela, and to some extent Argentina, but generally Latin America, the new markets of Asia, Latin America, Africa and the Middle East, and Central and Eastern Europe are already 31%, almost a third of our business, and we have market leadership positions in all of those markets actually. So they're very important, and Latin America will continue to be. I happen to think this is the decade of Latin America. Some of recent events have not helped that thesis, that approach, but I still believe, and we've gone past the comment that John Gunter made in his book Inside Latin America, which I read for the first time when I went to Rio for the first time in 1969, which is, Latin America almost always promised but never delivered. So I think we've gone past that stage, but it's very important. Yeah, over here, lady. Sorry, this lady and then that lady. Okay, fine.
Okay. Hi, my name is Hitomi Moriyama. I'm an editor of marketing magazine Senden Kaigi in Japan.
Right.
I have two questions. First, it has gone 102 years since Dentsu Aegis Network founded.
Yes.
Now Dentsu has still bought global agencies constantly and aggressively. How do you see that?
Well, I'm a little bit puzzled. I'm a little bit puzzled by Dentsu Aegis. If you look at the numbers, and we deconstruct the numbers as much as we possibly can, and there is some opacity in the numbers. But if you do the analysis of Dentsu Aegis since the Aegis acquisition, two things strike you. Firstly, Japanese profit margins of Dentsu have risen from about 20 to last time I looked to 24%. And overseas profit margins have gone from 15 to 7.5%, so they've halved. So it appears that Dentsu Aegis is trying to increase market share and sacrifice margins. I don't think that is the right strategy, but that is their strategy. I think that will ultimately cause problems, but we shall see. I mean, our view is we should grow our business top line and bottom line and improve our margins. So it's a totally different approach. It's also an approach based on media purely. The creative side of the business, the digital creative side of the business is not as important. It's media driven. we think more balanced groups. But the thing that I am surprised about is the collapse in the overseas margins. Now, I'm assuming our data is correct. That's it. You're nodding your head, agreeing, so it must be right.
Okay. Second question. Do you have any images or opinions about current Japanese market?
It remains tough. The 3 arrows or the 2 arrows with 1 to come. Prime Minister Abe's new economic policy has improved the position clearly from a currency point of view. The changes that we see in the industry are driven by currency, not yet by fundamental strategic change. Having said that, I had a meeting this morning with our colleagues from ADK, which is the 3rd largest agency group in Japan, where we own 23%, I think it is, of the equity there. And I would say that under new leadership at ADK, we are seeing, under Ueno-san's new leadership, we are seeing a major change in strategy with which we are fully in agreement with. And I think that might signal the impact of Prime Minister Abe's 3 areas. So maybe short term, it was a pure currency impact. Maybe we will start to see the structural changes that are needed. Having said that, Japan is arguably the 4th largest economy in the world. It would be the US, China, then Japan, the 3rd largest agency, probably Germany coming up behind it. But Japan is really important, and gaijin companies like our own have found it very difficult to penetrate the Japanese market, and therefore I think it's immensely important. So I think initially it looks like currency-driven changes that have made Japanese companies much more powerful. In the longer term, we may, certainly from my experience, we might be starting to see a little bit of change. Even Hakuhodo has started to look outside Japan. Okay, this lady here, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rosie, the editor of Ad News in Sydney. So in Sydney, Group M and Mediacom specifically are going through some significant kind of reputational issues after some misreporting.
I don't think it's Group M, actually, to be fair. I think it's more around what happened at Mediacom, but never mind.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of accuracy into the Australian press.
We try our best.
Try harder is the best.
It's also, I think in the US at the moment, there's a big thing with media agencies and rebates. And
but those are two different
They're
issues.
separate issues, but they all feed into the reputation of media agencies.
First thing on the US, there is not a rebate market. There are no, I mean, certainly speaking for WPP, Group M, etc., there are no rebates. I can't speak for Havas and contracts that are published in Ad Age with imprecise wording, right? That was the explanation, but that's different. What happened in Australia was unacceptable, and we've taken the action necessary to do it. It's difficult, but actually the business is in good shape in Australia, in a market which, as you well know, is challenged.
It is a challenge market. It's very competitive and knife
Well,
fighting.
I wasn't referring to the competitive nature of it. I'm talking about economic growth.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. But I guess my question is around the reputational issue and whether that damage that has been done and has kind of spread across the market can be addressed, and how you continue to address that.
Well,
because that specific issue was handled, but it still has a lasting.
Yes, I mean, I think you have to operate with transparency, and you have to be as open. And just on the question, whilst we're talking about transparency, if you as responsible members of the press could get our competitors to publish their billings figures, their revenue figures, and their net sales figures, that will be a start. Okay? So I don't feel I have to make any explanations to you about transparency when we're very transparent with those numbers and indeed other numbers. So I think a key is transparency. On the question of transparency, just make one observation. People focus on the agencies. There is the issue of transparency elsewhere. For example, you do not know how the Google algorithm works. You do not know how not you, I mean clients, for example. They do not know how the Facebook algorithm works. And in terms of profitability, agencies on average make somewhere between 10 and 15, 16. We make about 16% on our net sales. Last time I checked, Facebook and Google were making around 40 to 50%. And in fact, at the margin, probably closer to 90 or 100%. So I think the answer to your question is it's important to be transparent. If you make a mistake, you correct it as rapidly as possible.
Christian Simon, RTL Hungary. And I have one question. There are two new laws in Hungary connected to the ad market. Ad tax, media companies have to pay ad tax 5% of the revenue. And the other one, government banned the media agencies bonus, the AVB. So I think it's not, the second is not only a Hungarian question. So it kind of similar can happen in the US. What do you think about this government tax?
Just say, rebates don't occur in the US, right? There is no rebate in the market. So the AVB, and we saw that with here in France with the Loi Sapin, and so the answer to your question is the market adjusts. So agency remuneration adjusts if AVBs are banned, they adjust, and fees, no commissions, fees or commissions establish a different balance. But to be quite clear, there is no AVB in the US.
How can it affect the market in Hungary? What do you think?
Well, I think I don't know enough about the Hungarian market to be able to give you an expert view, to be honest. But if you look at what's happened in other markets, I think like in Greece as well, if I remember rightly, but certainly in France, the market is adjusted. Now, the question, the more important question is if agencies can provide added value, they will survive and prosper. So the real issue for me is, our strategy is based on new markets. We were asked about new markets, on new media, on data and the application of technology, and lastly what we call horizontality, is we're getting our 188,000 people to work together in 111 countries. There are three other things that are really important in the context of the question about Australia and the context of the question about Hungary or America. Technology, so AtNexus and Xaxis, our programmatic platform, are good examples of that. Data, so our investment in Rentrack, in offline measurement, and Comscore in online measurement, together with Kantar, which is 25% of our business, $5 billion of revenue out of 20 billion, is important in that sense. And content. I mentioned all our content investments, but you've seen here at Cannes Snapchat with the Daily Mail, you've seen Alex the Kid, our involvement with Vice. Those are all those are all examples of content development that we're in. So those three areas, the answer to your question in part is agents are being able to demonstrate that technologically, from a data point of view and from a content point of view, they can add value. They will be of value. If you become a commodity, you don't.